Nearly caught the feet.
Give us a little kind of training background history.
Training background. All my life growing up as a kid, always wanted to become a professional football player. My dream, many a song I've listened to dreaming that I was coming out of Selhurst Park, mate. Give it the old, or a Wembley.
At least you chose the right team, that's the main thing.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, always been into like running, football mainly. Been into strength training since I was about 14. But essentially what happened, just to give you the long and short of it, is when I was playing football at a very decent level, weight training and being in the gym just kind of took over, and that was where my passion was going. Although I still love football, what I was doing in the gym didn't really fit in with what I was doing on the football pitch. I was going to training and working my socks off, but I was getting heavier and heavier because I was lifting more and more weights. And especially back then, what I was doing was very chesty, all upper body. There was no real explosive power. It was all kind of bodybuilder movements, and that was kind of the things that I was following. Probably got into it from watching YouTube, actually, watching people who were training, learning a little bit more about what they were doing, and then implementing it into my own training, whether that was food, weight training, and then over time, I just got to a size where I was a lot stiffer than I should have been, being in the position I was, which was left back. So I've always had a background of playing football, being into athletics, loving training, loving the discipline that training provided me. But over time, just as I got older and got into more weight training, they didn't go hand in hand. And I needed to decide what I wanted to do next. And that's where I then found a place I could do my personal training qualification, and I haven't looked back since.
So start to take us into a bit more, I guess, more up to date over the last few years, because although weight training, the resistance stuff is something that kind of really sparked that interest in the gym. I guess some of your challenges more recently have been more endurance based. So you had the big 100k, right?
Yeah.
You had the marathons and stuff. So kind of talk us through how did that all come about?
Yeah, I guess there's a few different phases, and let's take everyone back to prior to the pandemic, pre-2020. Leading up to that point, the year before, still playing football, still lifting weights. The goal wasn't really to become a professional football player. The goal was really to enjoy playing football, and that was where I was coming to the end of my career, but still trying to run a business, still trying to train, weight train, and they still weren't going hand in hand. So what I found is I was still getting bigger, but it wasn't really conducive to me playing football and being as athletic as I wanted to be. So let's take you back to 2019. Moving into 2020, obviously lockdown hit, my training completely transformed. I don't know what it was, but I think the stress of going into lockdown, having to take my whole business online and doing Zoom workouts every single day, I didn't weight train for a year. And those Zoom sessions were all around using a towel, a resistance band, body weight, very high intensity. And some of the time I was working out 2 to 3 times a day. I was filming a live video in the morning, then I did a pre-recorded one, and I started working with a company where I'd pre-record for their business for them to roll out to their team on Facebook. You could imagine what then happened, like muscle mass just shrunk, fitness improved massively, but I actually got COVID over that period of time as well. I didn't have the hunger to lift weights. I think the gym as well in itself, although the studio we were at in the previous gym, didn't really give me that urge to go, I want to go and lift weights, I want to lift more. Didn't really have what we have here today. And I think coming back over to, taking you back, fast forward into 2021 where we opened this place in May, being able to walk into this gym and have what we wanted, it was so refreshing. I was so excited to get back into the gym, lift weights, use equipment properly rather than being worried about slamming the dumbbells on the floor because we didn't have the right, literally a dumbbell would have gone through the floor, it was like a laminate. And yeah, so football, lifting weights, then went into just cardio based, training through Zoom, body weight, HIIT stuff, but it was all HIIT essentially, so Tabatas, you name it, I was doing it. And then moving into 2021, I was training here but with no structure, no program. Decided to, because of the spell I went through over COVID, I was in a bit of a depressed state, I would say, because of how lonely it was, being very isolated in the gym on my own, working on trying to figure out where we're going to go next. So coming into the end of 2020, moving into 2021, I was trying to figure out a way that I could challenge myself. And I literally, with a day's notice, was like, right, I'm going to go and run a marathon tomorrow. I think it was David Goggins who inspired me to do it. And I remember there's actually a video on my Instagram of me saying, right, David Goggins, I'm going to do a challenge tomorrow. I'm running a marathon. Hadn't done it. Super naive. Went out with no water, no backpack, no phone, no earphones. Didn't fuel up properly. I remember being at like 35k, literally my liver felt like it was going to explode because it was so dehydrated. And thankfully I survived. Next day I spoke to one of my best pals, Brad, and he was like, listen mate, you've done 100k, but you've done a marathon, but how about you do 100k? Anyone could do a marathon. How many thousands of people do a marathon every year at the London Marathon? I was like, yeah, good point. Then we started training for a 100k that we signed up to, which was in June. And that was where training really ramped up on the running side. Weight training decreased, and that was hard to take because we just opened up this place. And it was really difficult to try and not get stuck back into the gym where I had that hunger back. I had to decrease training, weight training here, increase 3 runs a week. So we were doing, at times, a marathon a week, leading up to the last 6 weeks up to the 100k. Did that, completed it, went back into strength training, couldn't wait to gain some size. So I'm at 90 kilos now. I was at 75 kilos when I ran that. So it's pretty amazing how my body changed. But the way I describe it is a skinny fat. Just didn't really have much muscle, no size, just looked very skinny and gaunt. When I look back at pictures now, I'm like, Jesus. But I needed to be that shape to be able to complete the 100k, which I'd done in something like, I think 14 hours, just shy of 14 hours. And then fast forward to the end of 2022 and taking you into where I am today, decided to work with Cass and him help me with my program because I've never really followed a structured training program where I'm checking in with a coach. It's always been by what I've learned and what I like to do. It's been great implementing something very different, more structured. There's regular accountability and check-ins. There's a different perspective on training and nutrition. And the goal right now is to get into a shape where I'm doing a photo shoot in April, which will be the 30th of April. So the goal right now is to get as shredded as possible. 4 months prior to this, I've been gaining. I went from 85 kilos to 92. And 4 months moving into now, we're looking at probably getting to the low 80s, 80 to 82 kilos, finishing at that, and basically getting the best shape possible. Really, what the purpose of it is to build some discipline into my routine for the next 4 months. I've learned, especially coming out of the 100k, that I need something big to come into. I can't just stop and reflect and go, that's an amazing moment, because it's very easy to then slip back into old habits of just being, I'm naturally a very lazy person. So I can fall back into lazy territory unless I have something that's really big where I have to stretch to get there.
How did the 12 marathons over 12 months come about? And I guess the second part to that question is, what did your training look like at that point versus what it is now getting ready for your photo shoot at 92 kg?
Yeah, I guess what I alluded to earlier in the case of finishing a big accomplishment like 100k, off the back of that, then going into gaining as much muscle as possible within that 6 month period between July and December. I knew I needed something big for 2022, and that was going to be something that where I looked back and went, 100k, how can I really beat that? And to be honest with you, for anybody watching this, I do not enjoy running, which is why I do it, because it teaches me that discipline, doing things I don't enjoy. Some might find that hard to believe, but there's a lot to be said for doing. It's a really good book, Embrace the Suck, which I read when I was on holiday. And it's all about a Navy SEAL who talks about how important it is to embrace the things that you really don't enjoy. For example, training, for a lot of people, they don't enjoy it, but they enjoy the feeling afterwards. So the whole build up to getting into a training session, to doing the training session, is like the worst nightmare, but they finish it, they come out the other end, and they feel on cloud 9. So for me, it was about finding something that was going to challenge me, both physically and mentally, and for a long period of time. Not just a month, not just one marathon, but doing one every single month for 12 months, getting 12 within a year, whilst having a baby, whilst trying to grow the business, whilst starting a new educational service, which is really exciting, and then going into a phase where I'm trying to gain body weight, which was again counterproductive to what I was really trying to do for the 100k when I was losing body weight, losing body fat. And going into the 12 marathons, I had real up and downs, from the cold months of January to March to the hot months of August and September to having the baby. And I remember even a few nights where I ran in the pitch black dark, my phone died, I'm in the woods. And when I look back on it, there were some really tough times, but it teaches you a lot of character. You learn a lot about yourself. Being out on the road, running for 4 to 5 hours, you learn a lot about what you can do. And getting to the last one and being able to complete it with Amy and record it actually, and look back on it in a few years' time will be really rewarding as well, to think back to what I was able to achieve within a year. Because a lot of people, they look in terms of the next month, the next week, where their body weight's at right now. But for me, I figured out that I need to have really a much longer term goal and embrace more of that suck to be able to motivate me to keep going. Otherwise, if I have too much of a short-term goal, even 4 months, really when you look at it, it's a short-term goal, but I've been doing this for the last 9 months, really, including the gaining phase and then going into me stripping down. It's all about long-term for me. It's not about quick success. It's about being able to embrace and be consistent and prove to myself that I can do it over a long period of time. Because anyone can drop weight or stay on a diet for a few weeks and a month, but when it really matters, especially with what I'm going into now, training for 6 times a week, 2 conditioning sessions, 4 lifting sessions, still trying to lift pretty heavy, still working with some big movements. And Cass actually just voice noted me earlier to say that we're going to be dropping calories next week, which should be interesting. So this next phase over the next 4 months is about consistency, getting more sleep in, reducing caffeine, reducing stress, eating more consistently, but over time we're going to be reducing those calories, which is going to become even more challenging. I've never taken my body to that limit, which is why I wanted to do this. I've seen a lot of people do it, including Frankie, who works here, and that inspired me when I saw how she prepared herself to get to her shoot and what she looked like at the end of it. I was like, wow, that's amazing. Like, to take your body to that state where she was around people constantly eating rubbish, and she just had that mindset of, no, I don't need it, I don't want it. And it's funny because now I can resonate with that, because I'm like, you know what, it doesn't even in the slightest tempt me to go, I want a brownie, or I want to have a bit more chocolate, or I want to have X, Y, Z. The fact that I've got that goal in sight of April the 30th inspires me to keep on track and stay consistent with my food, which is going to be, like I said, the most challenging part, especially when intensity with training is the same, my working day is the same, but my calories are much different. And that's what's going to be the biggest challenge, is managing that, the food. If you don't like me when I'm hungry, JT.
Let's say April 30th, you're standing there, shredded, donut in hand, milkshake in hand. What's next?
That's a good question. I've already got a couple of things. Definitely want to complete a High Rocks this year. I'd love to do it with the team this year, but I think the state I'm going to be in come the 1st of May, the day after, I'm not going to be ready for High Rocks. Training wouldn't have prepared for it right. I'll be in an extreme calorie deficit, probably on a sugar high somewhere. But yeah, I've already booked in June, the 48 hard. No, not 48 hard. 4 miles every 4 hours, sorry, the David Goggins challenge. So 48 hours worth of run every 4 hours. Essentially what it looks like is that within 4 hours you have to complete 4 miles. However long it takes you, it's like a 4-hour EMOM, I guess. So that means that going through that period of sleeping, you're never sleeping probably for longer than 3 hours, which should be a challenge. So I've got that, definitely want to complete in the High Rocks, probably at the end of the year at some point. And then that's all at the moment that I've got planned. We spoke about doing the marathon, but it's really hard, especially where I've gone for these phases of only doing 1 or 2 things a year. I'm really tempted this year to go wild, because by April I would have completed a massive goal. And I want to go, oh, I'll do this, I'll do that. But it's really important that I keep that time, especially with what I'm about to go through. It's probably going to really mess up a lot of things in terms of getting back into the cycle of eating better, like back up to a higher amount of calories, getting back into a different kind of training. I wouldn't have run for 4 months. There's no running in a part of this program. So I can't just be like, yeah, I'm going to go out for a marathon a week later. I need to make sure that my body really eases back into normal life, because this isn't where I'm going to be taking it, isn't where you should be for a long period of time. And that's why a lot of bodybuilders at the moment, this is a bodybuilding kind of program and where I'm taking it, although I'm not jumping on stage, I'm doing it for a photo shoot. But a lot of bodybuilders in this current day are now going to more of the functional fitness world and looking at more of how they're going to improve their cardiovascular fitness, their nutrition, because I guess they found that the health benefits of being a bodybuilder, they want longevity now. They want to feel good, they want to be healthy, and bodybuilding doesn't always give them that.
Like these challenges, like that's going to go in the diary, or I'm going to book that. What drives you to turn up at the gym for 4:20, 4:25 in the morning every day? Obviously there's an aesthetic side of it to a certain extent, there's some challenges, but even with that, like it's a tough routine to back. Like, what gets you turning up every day?
There's a few things really. I mean, one is family, obviously, is always a big one for me, just making sure I make them proud. Also just like inspiring the team. Like I said it the other day, and this is partly why I'm doing the YouTube series, is to be able to show a different side to the mindset. Also being able to broadcast the journey, which is a form of accountability really. Like the way I use social media isn't really for pleasure, it's to be able to inspire, but also for people to hold me accountable. Like when I put videos up, for people to go, I love that, I want to see more of that. That helped me go to the gym this morning. That was a great bit of motivation you gave me. I need to do more of it, I need to be more consistent. But also just from the team's perspective, I want to be out in that position where I am leading and I am inspiring, and people aren't like, I'm not that person where people go, he just says he's going to do something, doesn't do it. He does it half-assed. I want to go for it and look back and go, I want no regrets. Probably, you know what, thinking about it now, this is the first time I thought about it, it's probably where it stemmed from football. I didn't give it everything. I really loved it. I gave a huge part of my life for it. But really the gym side of things, that should have taken a backbone, and the football should have been prioritised. Where now I'm in a position where I'm like, I never want to be in that position in 5 years' time, where I look back and go, if only I just focus on that a bit harder and just focus on that one thing, rather than trying to do multiple things, like getting bigger, getting stronger, getting leaner, trying to play football, trying to get quicker, and not doing it to the fullest potential. And who knows where it could have taken me. But I think we all have our own journey, and the journey I'm on right now is about inspiring others, showing that anything is possible, really. Anything is possible. Even when I just said to you a minute ago about me getting into the state I'm getting into come April and not doing a high rocks the next day, I think, why not? Why not? That's kind of the philosophy I've taken on now, is that why not? I think we always have a story in our mind where we're like, I couldn't do that because of X. I can't do a marathon the next day because of X. Yes, I wouldn't enjoy it, but I could complete it. Why not? For me, I just want to compete in high rocks and do well at it. I don't want to get around and slog because I'm absolutely dead. I want to do well. That's partly the reason. But yeah, I think a lot of the time we can talk ourselves out of it, and it's the same with gym journeys. People who kick out the gym and I meet them, they've been waiting for ages. They've been procrastinating for a long time because they want to start at the gym, but they've just created every excuse. Kids, family, time, work, money, whatever it may be. There's been an excuse in their way. And I kind of found, I'm in a position now where I'm like, if I see an excuse, I kick it to the floor. And that's why when I train at 4:30 in the morning, it really does teach me that discipline, because even more so I don't want to turn up at the gym and get up at the morning at that time. But when I've done it and I've got into more consistency with it, I feel like that is, for me, what keeps me motivated on a day-to-day basis with training, but also just in life. I'm able to be a bit more calmer throughout the day, although you may not think it. I'm able to just be a better person when I train at 4:30, rather than when I come and haven't trained for a couple of days. I feel a little bit more antsy. I feel a bit more anxious. Like, people have their different ways of dealing with things. They might meditate, they might book a spa day to go and relax. But for me, training consistently 5 to 6 days a week is what keeps me on my grind every single day. Because I think, because you train at that time as well, JT, when you come in and you train at that time, you finish, you feel ahead of the game. And I think for me, you've got to find things that really motivate you, especially when you're training at that time in the morning. So if it isn't doing anything for you, if your output's poor, if you're getting in trouble at home because your alarm's going off at 4 a.m, or sleep's starting to dip and you're feeling like it's affecting your productivity in the daytime, then you need to put it to bed. But when I think about all the benefits I get from training at 4:30, the time I get back, the happier I am throughout the day, the more productive I am. It just, for me, that's what keeps me motivated. It's many different things.
So what's been the one biggest struggle you've had to overcome from a fitness point of view, training wise, fitness related? So
biggest struggle?
Biggest struggle you've had to overcome?
You know what? I'd say I've had 12. Every marathon I've done has been the biggest struggle. I think it's really hard for me to pinpoint one, because where I have the biggest struggles is when I'm doing long distance running, which is why I continue to do them, because I break through the other end. And I think unless you've been there, you won't understand what I'm talking about. Whereas I'm at 35k, I've got 7k to go, and my body is literally breaking down. I need food. I'm looking for, every minute I'm looking at how many K I've got left. And that was pretty much every single marathon, because I didn't prepare properly for them. I didn't prepare for one marathon really. And I think when you're going through that state of being like, this is like life or death now. My body's shutting down. You're cramping up, your hips are hurting, your back's in pain, and the time is just taking forever. See, I would say that's going to be the biggest struggle when I reflect, is where I was at for that last period of the last 5 to 10k. Yeah, I guess, it's a good point actually. Coming out of football is probably something that was one of the hardest parts, because also it came with its injuries, ankle issues, knee problems. But as I explained earlier, the marathon's probably, actually when I look back, and maybe it's because it's so recent that I feel the pain of that, but definitely doing that last 10 to 15 Ks worth of a marathon is probably the thing I've had to overcome the most, with mind, body, the feeling of wanting to give up and wanting to stop. And trust me, I say it all the time. When I'm running, I'm like, I should just stop. I should just give up. Why do I need to continue doing this? We're done at 8.
To flip that,
Yeah.
biggest success stories in the fitness side?
Biggest success. That's a really hard one. Biggest success. I'm terrible at this stuff anyway. I know I say to you, JT, about looking back at yours, and I'm the biggest hypocrite. Biggest success. I would say the 100K.
So you've hit some really big milestones.
Yeah, I'd say the 100K for sure, because it dedicated so much of my life, and from where I was beginning of 2021 to then completing it come June, July time. I think it was July actually. Completing that at the end, having 6 months of dedicated training, hitting every single run we said we were going to do 3 times a week, was probably the biggest challenge I overcame. And then having to actually do the 100K, be with Brad and complete that with him, because there was a lot involved with it as well, from like the preparation point leading up to it. It was miles away, we had to stay away, and running that together with him was awesome. That was probably the thing I'm most proud of, because of the distance and the feat of it. But anything over a marathon, I believe, is an ultra, and going to double that. And when I think back to how I felt at 50K or that 100K, it was nothing. And that's why I think it was about with running, it was all about mindset. Because when I hit 30K, I hit that low every time when I do a marathon. But if I know to do 100 when I hit 30, I'd still be, my momentum would be like, I've just got to get to 100. It's always that last 10 to 15K mark, similar to when I done the 100K. When I hit 90, I was fine. All the way to 90K, I was absolutely fine. The last 10K, I was flagging massively. Luckily, Brad had to pick me up and ran, and I just followed him and stayed on his feet. So yeah, I'll probably say that's the biggest success for me, for sure.